New tier list. So it's been like 6 months since we got our last one, and that was actually a reorganization of the November tier list. Before we get into breaking down the new tier list, uh, as always, special thank you to the tier list committee. If there's one thing Amiibo trainers can agree on, it's disagreeing with things, right? And so I imagine it's very frustrating to create a new tier list, spend all the time and work surveying people and building out the statistics and then making the thing. I imagine it's a real pain in the butt. And so special shout out to the tier list committee. You guys know who you are. I actually don't I don't have like a list of people who are on it, so but if you're on this thing, thank you. You're a stud. I bestow upon you you can't really see it in this lighting. It's the lighting, right? Of course. But I bestow upon you a couple of peck pops. There you go. Wow, having the light that really, because there's no shadow, and that's like, anyway. So this just released last night. Amiibodoctor.com/tier list. Go to the website for the full thing in all of its glory. This really shook people up. Like a lot. I mean, it really, really shook people up. So I have had a post in my website drafts for like 3 months. No, not that long. Probably 2 months now about should we create an S plus tier. And the reason that we had that was because there were so many amiibo that were consistently the most powerful over the S tiers, but not quite Incineroar level. Kazuya, Mii Gunner, Min. I think we're really the big three. Well, Mii Gunner, in my opinion. Most people contest Mii Gunner, but I think Mii Gunner is. And it looks like instead of doing an S plus tier, they just kicked everyone down a half a tier. Like, almost everyone in the meta has been kicked down a half tier, which is like really bizarre. They also created a D tier, which we'll get to the lower half of the tier list towards the end of the video. They also split up A tier, like A plus tier and A tier were a thing already, but they kicked a lot of the A tier back down. Let me see if I can't find the old tier list. Well, the old tier list is on the website for comparison. I won't waste your time with that. But the old A and A plus tiers, A plus tier was like 5, but A tier was like really, really big. I mean, we're talking like probably, I don't know, 15 amiibo in that, if I remember correctly. If I'm wrong, we'll just make that our little secret because I don't remember. I'm uncaffeinated on an empty stomach right now, so this ought to be really fun. So let's go through some of these placings. First and foremost, Kazuya in U tier. Frankly, this deserves its own video of how momentous it is, and I might just make another, leave a comment if you want me to do a video specifically on Kazuya being in U tier and how like momentous that is for the meta. Yeah, so like, wow. Look, I said, I wrote a piece on Amiibodoctor.com, the best website in the world, a while. I'm not trying to plug myself repeatedly. I apologize. But I wrote a piece when the Kazuya bin was first put into the game that Kazuya should be banned like right away. Just ban the Kazuya amiibo today. Yeah, when did I post that? Yeah, August 8th, 20... Really? Oh, that's right. No, because I updated it. But I originally wrote it back... It's been a while. We'll just put it that way. So... Anyway, look at that tricep. Getting swole. Yeah, Kazuya's already been banned from like pretty much everything. Putting him in U tier is kind of a big deal, right? Kazuya was the key argument for S plus tier, I think, because like U tier, that's, I've kind of flopped back and forth on what I think U tier describes. Is it unbeatable? Is it universally banned? I don't know. But in this case, having Kazuya in U tier, either way, he's universally banned and he's not unbeatable. You'll recall last summer I did that video right before the documentary on the Kazuya Amiibo Gauntlet, where for like an hour I put my Kazuya, my very poorly trained Kazuya, against a lot of the community's Amiibo, and he only lost like twice out of 20 or 30 matches. So a well-trained Kazuya amiibo could easily steamroll a lot of things. He's not invincible like Incineroar. Well, I mean, Incineroar's not invincible, an optimal Incineroar is. He's not theoretical, like in 20XX scenario, okay, when everyone's at the absolute top of their game because we've spent millions of years and trillions of man hours innovating the amiibo meta. He's not unbeatable like Incineroar is, okay, but he might as well be for his tournament results. Yeah, he might as well be. So Kazuya and U tier is absolutely the right call. I got a little desk light thing. It's nice because it makes me look less pale. Because believe me, if I open those blinds, I'll look like a vampire. But it's like right in my eye, and that hurts. Min Min at top of S. I understand the theory behind it. I get it. I think theoretically Min Min would be top of S. What seems to have happened, at least on Amiibots, is that Min Min came out and everyone like curb stomped the meta with Min Min, and then people were like, yeah, screw that. If you go to the Amiibots tier list, last I checked, about a week ago, Min Min is like not even in S tier. And that fluctuates in real time, so it's going to be different. But the reason that's the case is because nobody like submits Min Min anymore. But I do think theoretically, yeah, Min Min S tier. Yeah, I think that's fair. What I'm really happy about and kind of sad about, but also really happy about, is Mii Gunner in S tier. You'll recall I did that video probably a month ago now, the Ridley Revolution. I centered the video on Ridley. Kind of makes me sad to see him where he is. But I centered the video on Ridley and also discussed Mii Gunner. Razor Force 21 has just blown the doors open with Mii Gunner. There's been a lot of other people working on it. It's not just him. Although he did just write a guide on how he trained his completely meta-shattering Mii Gunners at amiibodoctor.com. That's been recently posted. But no, it makes me happy to see Mii Gunner. I've always insisted on Mii Gunner, like, being S tier, you know? And he's been, Mii Gunner is canonically a woman. I realize there's no canon, but she's canonically a woman. But I've always insisted that she has the moveset to be S tier, right? And, I had different reasons for that. I thought it was missiles that was really going to end up dominating. And I think missiles are incredibly important. I don't think you can have a top tier Mii Gunner without missiles. However, no, just smash attacks alone, dude. Just hard carries Mii Gunner big time. Once the AI got figured out after that patch a couple years back, yeah, it was only a matter of time. I think it's incredibly important to realize, and I don't know, obviously Razor Force and the other Mii Gunner trainers deserve all of the credit for this. Maybe it was just my publication, or maybe that was a trend that people were following anyway. I don't know. I don't have access to that information and don't care to. But I think it's incredibly important to know that she's above Terry. Okay? So of the base AI that we see here, okay, only Mii Gunner was in Smash Ultimate when it launched. So there's a trend. It's power creep in the Amiibo meta. It's a video I did probably 18 months ago, where I talk about how Amiibo that have released after Smash Ultimate launched, starting with Piranha Plant and K-Rool, although I'm kind of surprised to see him only in A tier. Piranha Plant's at least A+. He's at least Link level, that's for sure. But those characters tend to be much, much better than the ones that were already in the game's data at launch. And if you look at the top tiers here, it makes sense. K-Rool was actually in the game originally, but I guarantee you that they made his AI for Ultimate because he wasn't in Smash 4, and so he would be subject to the power creep. K-Rool, Terry, Min Min, Kazuya, and Cinder top 6 in the game, plus Mii Gunner to make 6, because that's 5 plus 1, which is 6. And Mii Gunner is the only one whose AI was in originally. But even Mii Gunner got patched. That's the other thing, is that Mii Gunner had a patch a while back. And so this really goes to show just how much power creep there has been in the Amiibo meta, where the entire top 2 tiers are new AI, right? Bowser and Ridley and DDD and those 3 have never been patched. Byleth is obviously a DLC. Ness got a patch a while back to make it actually easier for him to PK Fire, PK Thunder spam, and Link has been beaten to death with patches over the years, poor guy. And those patches really weren't actually helpful in most scenarios, I would say. But either way, this is serious power creep, very serious power creep, and I'm happy to see Mii Gunner up there because I've always rooted for Mii Gunner, even when everybody else was like, "No, there's just no results with Mii Gunner. There's just nothing that really validates her placement in S tier. She just doesn't have it." And I was like, "Yeah, but she could easily." And just because you guys don't train her that way doesn't mean that she's not in 20XX, which is why I always perceive the meta in terms of what, after a million years of manpower and a trillion man hours of innovation, what would the meta look like then? And that's why I said Mii Gunner was S tier. Not that I'm some sort of visionary. I just think about the end game in everything all the time, ever, because I'm a freak of nature. Okay, so let's talk about the next big thing, the A tier split. So this riled up a lot of people. I look, I don't really have strong opinions on most Amiibo. It's just a tier list. It's not the end of the world. It's not some sort of like objective declaration. Might I remind you, okay, the USAC tier list, this what you're looking at, is absolutely by far and away the best tier list on the planet. Okay, and the reason it's the best tier list on the planet is because it's from the best Amiibo server on the planet. USAC, USAC. Invite link at amiibodoctor.com, or somebody should post it in the comments. Actually, I think YouTube would auto-filter that. Anyway, however, tier lists are still products of consensus. And the Amiibo meta is no stranger to having certain fads or schools of thought that fade away. I don't see any fads in this case necessarily, but there are sometimes anti-fads, right? So you see Dark Pit and Pit in B+, when historically they've been A+, since the beginning of time, right? I still maintain Dark Pit and Pit, when they're at their most capable, are probably at about Link level. I put most... Basically, I decide if something is high tier on whether it's at Link's level or above. If it's above Link's level, it deserves... I guess on this list it would be A+. On previous lists we would call it S tier. And if it's below Link's level, then it doesn't, right? And the pits, when good, when they're bad, they're just worse. Like a bad pit is like C tier, okay? And when my pits are trained, they're like C tier, which tells you all you need to know about me. But a good pit, one that uses his crap correctly and connects the moves. You guys don't realize, Pit has so many multi-hits, and there's really nothing in the meta that beats multi-hits. There's just not. Okay? The problem is there's just not a lot of multi-hit moves, right? Why do you think Mii Gunner is S tier? Forward smash. It's a ranged multi-hit. It's a melee attack, but it has a lot of distance to it, right? Pits are the same thing. They have so many multi-hits in the air, it's impossible for an Amiibo opponent to escape them. The problem is we don't have good pits right now. We need better pits. Give us better pits. I realized that without the A tier split, they probably would have been A tier, which still a little bit low. But, it's a product of consensus, right? And so, getting a wide variety of trainers to vote on the list and a lot of different eyeballs on it makes at least some level of sense. So, surprises me to see Banjo in A. I know that that's something that Hector the Dragon has worked really, really hard towards. And so I'm glad to see that Banjo survived that. Even if he's just barely hanging on by his fingertips, he's please lift me up. And like, no, bottom of A for you. You will dangle forever, right? That's kind of how Banjo's always been. But I do think bottom of A is probably it for Banjo. I'm not as optimistic about Banjo as some are. Mii Sword in A is... You're making the 2018 version of Amiibo Doctor very happy. I used to have a post, I ended up taking it down, but I used to have a post postulating that Mii Sword Fighter was S tier. And the reason I postulated that was that, I'm pretty sure I removed it, was that At the time, he had a absolutely killer up air. It's since been nerfed. But I figured that, well, if there's a way that we can get him to connect his tornado into up air, that's free kills, right? And so I'm sure people still use up air for something. I hope they still use up air for something. But seeing me Sword Fighter at A just gives joy to this old man's heart. Zelda in A makes sense. Olimar in A I find very interesting. I hate Olimar. I love Pikmin. I hate Olimar. And the reason I hate Olimar is because he defies. So, like, when I explain to people, okay, generally speaking, let me lift this chair up again. This is a cheap chair that's really not, really doesn't hold its height very well. When I explain to people, okay, generally weight is better in the Amiibo meta, they give me they look at the tier list and they give me 2 counterpoints. What about Rob? Because Rob's a heavyweight and Rob sucks. And then what about Olimar? Because Olimar is approximately the weight of this sheet of paper, and you can't see it, that sheet of paper, and he still like punches above his weight. And the reason Olimar does so well is because, not because of Olimar, but because of his Pikmin. His Pikmin are disjointed hitboxes. They have super armor on them. This is why I'm not. So I need some caffeine. I haven't actually had caffeine in a month. It's a little bit terrifying to think about. I have nothing against caffeine. I have a specific brand. It's a bubbler brand, but nobody sells it anywhere. Like, they only sell it at my university in the student union. That's like a 2-minute walk from law school. And that's the only place I can find it. I can't find it anywhere else. So Olimar, yeah, super armor. I get it. I'm a little surprised. I'm also a little disappointed that Hero is like this close to greatness, I don't know. I feel like, I don't know if Hero necessarily has any further optimization because his AI is already pretty good. He's gotten a lot of love, especially from the Joker and Hero stuff. Back in the day. But, I don't know. I guess I root for Hero more than most other Amiibo. Seeing Snake in A makes me very happy. So I remember back at the start of the pandemic, there was a lot of belief that, Snake is actually terrible. Snake is actually terrible. And I was like, no. The reason I was like, no, is because grenades are a wild card. And wild cards in Amiibo are rare, but when they happen, they make a big impact. Now, I don't know what the tier list committee's general consensus was on Snake, but he has KO power. He has crap out of grab. He has pretty solid recovery, I have to say. He's got C4, right? His toolkit, the AI itself is probably not that smart, but the toolkit that he's given is decent. And the AI with grenades and the edge guarding ability with side B, I think is really all he needs to kind of like crush it. I don't know, maybe optimal snakes don't use grenade. Maybe they should. Who's to say? Ryu at bottom of B plus feels like an underplacement, although given the movement that everyone just put in, it doesn't surprise me that much. Ryu got an AI buff, I don't know, probably a year and a half ago. It was the last balance patch, basically, whenever that happened. That was also an AI change for a lot of Amiibo. And the Ryu AI, in my opinion, is an A-tier AI. The character of Ryu might be dragging it down. Like, he might just not be killing often enough. He might not be doing enough damage. But the character of Ryu, well, if we're just gonna tier list this on AI alone, Ryu AI is A tier. So I don't know if that extends to the Amiibo, but okay, this is the big one. This one I find, this is probably the most ridiculous placement on this tier list. Pokemon Trainer in B. Pokemon Trainer does not deserve the same tier as Mega Man. I should know. I briefly had the best, I say briefly, it's probably about 6 to 9 months roughly, had the best Mega Man in the community, and I have never had the best Pokemon Trainer in the community, but I certainly have the most consistent one. Mine is at like, 34 points right now in Amiibots. He's almost in first place. He's been like the number 2 Pokemon Trainer in Amiibots for like almost a year now. I think we're coming upon the 1-year anniversary in about a month. Yeah, because it took him some time to get up to second place. But anyway, PT is not the same tier as Mega Man. What? What are you talking about? That's crazy. Like, it just doesn't even register. You know, you look at Amiibot, you know, I don't know what the Amiibot's tier list looks like right now. But like the results, I don't know about tournament results. Tournament results might be different, but the results seem to be pretty clear. He's not top of B. At least B plus. Like he's gotta be I can't explain that Steve placement, please don't ask me to. But he's gotta be above Steve. Like I can't name a single Steve that I have ever watched play, and I've watched a lot of Steves play, let me tell you, that is better than Pokemon Trainer. Okay? Like I just dude, I'm sorry, I have nothing to say besides what the hell. Like, I don't know. What are the odds that it was like one guy who's like PT is D tier and that just like weighed it down? Like I wouldn't be surprised by that. And look, this isn't coming from somebody who's been optimistic about Pokemon Trainer. I used to think that PT was C plus tier. Okay, I get it. I actually wrote a piece on this last year about all right, Pokemon Trainer's B plus tier, and I really thought he was headed for A because he punches that far above his weight. All right, like you know, the going theory behind PT used to be that Charizard was really the only good one, and then it was well Charizard and Squirtle are the good ones, and now there's like actually a lot of use for Ivysaur because he can side B spam, you know, that's why mine the reset is so successful. It's actually because Ivysaur he starts his Ivysaur, and so I don't. What are you doing? So no, PT for B plus tier makes a lot more sense. So as far as Mega Man, I don't know. It feels a little bit high. I realize that B tier is now like C plus tier. I think it's a little bit funny that Mega Man is like one of the only amiibo that escaped this big cascade down the tier list. You know, because he was at like third from the top on B before, and now he's still in B, and I'm like, you know, I've seen some killer Mega Mans, okay, and I've seen a lot of the best that Mega Man is capable of, and it's not. Actually, you know what? Comparing who he's with, Isabelle, Yoshi, Luigi. Yeah, you know what? That's not a bad placement. The label B I still take issue with because he's a C plus character to me. But the labels don't really matter. It's just what's relative. Like you could take the labels off and just assign like colors or something. He's in the soft yellow tier as opposed to the harder yellow tier, you know, and then it would still be the same arguments because it's all relative. So yeah, I mean, okay. I don't know. I don't think he deserves the same tier as Kirby and PT. I mean, might I remind you, Kirby used to be an A or A plus tier amiibo back in the day. Like, and I don't see any nerfs. You know, I don't think he's been nerfed at all since then. So I just have a hard time coming to that conclusion that Mega Man is in the same tier as those kids. So, all right, moving down. As far as the C plus tiers, I think Mewtwo has potential for B tier. Mewtwo, I generally place Mewtwo and Mega Man like at about the same power. How do I adjust this? At about the same power level, just a tad. Mega Man has an easier time KOing, but like when they're both optimal, like 20xx optimal, they're about the same power level in my opinion. So, you know, I think Mewtwo could go up. It's going to be a very uphill battle demonstrating that, let me tell you. But Falco, oh, geez, Falco. Oh, I clicked something that I shouldn't have clicked. So the other day I was like, it's been a while since I updated a Falco guide. Or since I released a new Falco guide, because I have a lot of old guides. Or I have a lot of characters that it's been 2+ years since I've asked for a new guide from, and so I'd like to get more guides out for those characters. And so I go to Amiibots, I'm like, Falco Vanilla Standard, and it pumps out, and like 9 of the top 10 are Falcos trained by Azend. Now I don't know Azend. I don't think we have any servers in common. no, if we do, my apologies. I just, I don't spend that much time online, so I wouldn't know that sort of thing. But I thought that was really funny. Like all of that's Ascend. But if I remember correctly, he topped out at like 28 points on Amiibots. It's hard to say in like a year that's going to seem like a D tier Amiibo because Amiibot's points seem to be going up over time. I remember about a year ago, if you wanted to be the top Pokemon trainer, you had to get like 30 points roughly, and now it's almost 35. And so as people add new amiibo into the meta, and the new amiibo are given more points than they take away from others, and so points inflation is a thing in my theory at least. But for right now, 28. I mean, if you want to be the top of anything, you probably got to be at least 30 points. If you want to be like S tier capable, you got to be at least 40. I think there's only a few amiibo that are above 40 points on anything ever. But Falco, yeah, no, I'd I'd say C plus is about right. Maybe even move him down to C, honestly, because that's not a great performance. Um, the Samuses, they're kind of all right. I'll take that. It surprises me to see Wario this low. Wario has always been one of those amiibo. I just consider Wario in general a wild card. In any given match, Wario has at least a 10% chance of just pulling a win out of his ass, which is exactly where you'd expect Wario to pull a win out of, right? That was also a downbeat joke, by the way. So, Wario and C plus, I get it because 10% is not a great probability. But there's a lot of these amiibo that don't have that kind of wild card capability. Like for Villager, there are probably like half the roster. Villager goes 95, 5 and 95 against, where he's just not going to win. It's just not going to happen. Sorry, right? It does surprise me to see Lucina this low. It feels like there's not been any innovation with Marcina since the beginning of the meta. And I realize it's probably due to the prevalence of Musket Method, but Musket Method is not that good. Pick something else. Some people have tried innovating with Marth a little bit, and I get that. Doing like forward air and stuff off stage, and that's awesome. But we might just have to come if we're gonna not. Okay, here's the thing. Lucina, back in the earliest days of the meta, Lucina was like A tier ish. Like she was considered solid, right? And I realized that playstyles were different back then. People trained differently back then, and there's not a lot of complexity either to Marth and Lucina Marcina, to Marcina's AI or character. But come on, like it's a sword, it's a counter. We've never really figured out how to successfully incorporate counter, and there's a lot of research being done on stuff like the item sliders, on stuff like the other feint bites and stuff that we use that activates counters that might use counter. Like you're telling me if Marcina figures out how to use counter, that's not going to help? Why haven't we ever looked at this, right? And I'm sure some people have, but amiibo are very complicated, and I don't know. I guess I just think that we should let go of our assumptions when it comes to how to train those two, because they used to be great and they have a reasonably good toolkit, and I don't know. It's disappointing. It's emotional. Maybe I'm just hungry. Moving on down. Oh, that's the bottom. Belmont's in C. No. Like, what are you talking about? No. This always happens with the Belmonts. I have said this for years, and I will continue to say it until I die. What happens with the Belmonts is that a couple of Belmonts do really, 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 really good, because the Belmonts actually kind of do well against high tiers, like a lot of the high tiers. And people are like, oh my god, it's the Belmonts, they're so great, we need to move them up on the tier list. And then they get moved up on the tier list, and then the community, about 6 months down the line, they're like, why are the Belmonts so high? I can't train a good one. And then they kick them back down. Okay, this always happens. The Belmonts are not C tier. The Belmonts are probably B tier. I would certainly put the Belmonts above Mega Man. I would put him using Mega Man and PT sort of as the goalposts here, because those are two amiibo that I understand, and they happen to be bottom and top of B tier respectively. Oh, I moved it. Do you mind? My upstairs neighbor is very loud. I would certainly put the Belmonts between those two. You know, now if PT really belongs in B plus tier and Mega Man really belongs in C plus tier, as I've said, then B tier Belmonts make sense to me. You know, I know that there's a couple of people who are working on making that happen, and so I wish them all the best of luck. Oh, shoot. Pichu in C tier. Pichu obviously deserves C tier. Rob doesn't deserve it. What the hell is Rob doing in C tier? Rob, get down from there. You're going to hurt yourself. So this is not related, but I'm probably going to do a video on this. There's a new experimental training method. Not going to get too much into details. It's called SSST. Basically, it's like, we're going to make the game go haywire, see what it does to our amiibo. And it seems to like produce weird results. Pichu and Pikachu have historically not really been able to use Thunder in the way that you would expect. Pichu would like rarely use Thunder, and even then I think only at Ledge. I don't remember what the conventional wisdom on that is. But basically, I trained a Pichu that uses Thunder on stage as an actual attack. And he uses it to snipe opponents that are above him, which is like kind of nuts. And this is being looked at by a lot of people right now. And if we figure out how to replicate it without SSST, although I think SSST could be a reasonably viable training method with some other stuff thrown in. On its own, it's not, but with other stuff thrown in, it would be. With more traditional training methods, it would be. But either way, if we figure out what exactly causes it to do that, because we legitimately have no idea why it's using Thunder. I taught it Thunder, but it just didn't like... so if we figure out what causes that, we could see Pichu gain an increase in kill power, which would be awesome. It would be absolutely awesome, because Pichu has always been a bit of a disappointment. Rob and C? Really? I get it. He's a heavyweight. His up smash has some kill power, but like, even without the AI issues, he's still a knucklehead. I don't know about that. I think a lot of the placements on this list I generally take no issue with, and they're perfectly fine. Robin C. Probably the last thing I'll really hard disagree with is Inkling in bottom of D+. Inkling is at least villager level. It's at least villager level. I mean, come on. I have seen some crazy Inklings. I wish, so the other day I recorded it, actually the other day, it was about probably 2-3 weeks ago, I recorded an Amiibo tournament that had some new Amiibo trainers in it, friends of friends in my server, and basically those Inklings, like, were amazing, like, absolutely amazing Inklings, and I really, really, really want to see those Inklings again, because... And I probably still have the bin file on my Amiibo Flask. I'd have to find... the Flask isn't there, but I'd have to see if I still have the bin file or not. But dude, those Inklings are just mind-blowingly good. And Inkling is definitely not at Ken level. I realize he looks like he's at Ken level because, you know, light tier and his path to KOing is not all that obvious. And sometimes the Amiibo has a hard time with it. I understand that. But Inkling and D+, no way. He's at least C relative to these guys. If Rob is C, Inkling is C, okay? Like, I'm just, come on, you're pushing me here, right? Rob and C and Inkling and D+, no, not a thing. So, as far as this D tier, I maintain Jigglypuff is worse in the game. I wrote about that a little bit in the section under the tier list on the website. Yeah, Jigglypuff is the worst in the game. Sorry. I realize people are kind of like afraid to say that, but I honestly don't see, how do you come to the conclusion that Jigglypuff is better than Bayonetta? Like, because Bayonetta at least has smash attacks and can kill. Like, Bayonetta can KO, Jigglypuff can't. Bayonetta has a hard time building damage, so does Jigglypuff. Bayonetta doesn't have an AI flaw that puts her in absolutely terrible positions all the time relative to the opponent. Jigglypuff has an AI flaw where he'll just use all of his jumps for no reason whatsoever and then float down slowly directly above the opponent. Like, what's the deal here? So I do not entirely understand that at all. I would accept Zero Suit Samus being the worst, but you'd have to demonstrate how she's worse than Jigs to me. So anyway, USAC Discord invite is in the description. You should join. If you don't join, I am going to be mad at you personally. You, specifically, you, behind watching my finger jab towards the camera, you. I'll be upset. I'll be like, man, that guy. Or if you're a lady, I'll be like, man. So join USAC, damn it. All right. Thank you for watching, y'all. And something, like and subscribe, whatever. I don't care.